If I must be a wicked man, give me the life of a roystering sinner who sins before the face of the day. But if I must sin, let me not act as a hypocrite and a coward. Let me not profess to be God's and spend my life for the devil. That way of cheating the devil is a thing which every honest sinner will be ashamed of. He will say, quote, "Now if I do serve my master, I will serve him out and out. I will have no sham of it. If I make a profession, I will carry it out. But if I do not, if I live in sin, I am not going to gloss it over by cant and hypocrisy." End quote. One thing which has hamstringed the church and cut her very sinews in twain has been this most damnable hypocrisy. Oh, in how many places have we men whom you might praise to the very skies, if you could believe their words, but whom you might cast into the nethermost pit, if you could see their secret actions? God forgive any of you who are so acting. I had almost said, I can scarce forgive you. I can forgive the man who riots openly and makes no profession of being better. But the man who fawns and cants and pretends and prays and then lives in sin, that man I hate. I cannot bear him. I abhor him from my very soul. If he will turn from his ways, I will love him. But in his hypocrisy, he is to me the most loathsome of all creatures. 'Tis said the toad doth wear a jewel in her head, but this man hath none, but beareth filthiness about him, while he pretends to be in love with righteousness. A mere profession, my hearers, is but painted pageantry to go to hell in. It is like the plumes upon the hearse and the trappings upon the black horses which drag men to their graves, the funeral array of dead souls. Take heed above everything of a waxen profession that will not stand the sun. Take care of a life that needs to have two faces to carry it out. Be one thing or else the other. If you make up your mind to serve Satan, do not pretend to serve God. And if you serve God, serve him with all of your heart. Quote, "No man can serve two masters." End quote. Do not try it. Do not endeavor to do it, for no life will be more miserable than that. Above all, beware of the committing acts which will be necessary to conceal. There's a singular poem by Hood called, quote, "The Dream of Eugene Aram," end quote. A most remarkable piece it is, indeed illustrating the point of which I am now dwelling. Aram has murdered a man and cast his body into the river. Quote, "A sluggish water, black as ink, the depth was so extreme," end quote. The next morning he visited the scene of his guilt, quote, "and sought the black accursed pool with a wild misgiving eye. And he saw the dead in the river bed, for the faithless stream was dry." End quote. Next he covered the corpse with heaps of leaves, but a mighty wind swept through the wood and left the secret bare before the sun. Quote, "Then down I cast me on my face, and first began to weep, for I knew my secret was one, the earth refused to keep, on land or sea, though it should be 10,000 fathoms deep." End quote. In plaintive notes he prophesies his own discovery. He buried his victim in a cave and trod him down with stones. But when years had run their weary round, the foul deed was discovered, and the murderer put to death. Guilt is a, quote, "grim chamberlain," end quote, even when his fingers are not bloody red. Secret sins bring fevered eyes and sleepless nights, until men burn out their consciences and become in very deep ripe for the pit. Hypocrisy is a hard game to play at, for it is one deceiver against many observers, and for certain it is a miserable trade, which will earn at last, in its certain climax, a tremendous bankruptcy. Ah, ye who have sinned without discovery, quote, "Be sure your sin will find you out," end quote. And bethink you, it may find you out ere long. Sin, like murder, will come out. Men will even tell tales about themselves in their dreams. God has sometimes made men so pricked in their consciences that they have been obliged to stand forth and confess the story. Secret sinner, if thou wantest the foretaste of damnation upon earth, continue in thy secret sins. For no man is more miserable than he who sinneth secretly. and yet trieth to preserve a character. Yon stag, followed by the hungry hounds, with open mouths, is far more happy than the man who is followed by his sins. Yon bird, taken in the fowler's net, and labouring to escape, is far more happy than he who hath weaved around himself a web of deception, and labours to escape it from it day by making the toils more thick and the web more strong. Oh, the misery of secret sins! Truly one may pray, quote, "Cleanse thou me from secret faults." End quote. 3. But now next, the guilt. The solemn guilt of secret sin. Now, John, you do not think there is any evil in thing unless somebody sees it, do you? You feel that it is a very great sin if your master finds you out and robbing the till, but there is no sin if he should not discover it. None at all. And you, sir, you fancy it to be very great sin to play a trick in trade, in case you should be discovered and brought before the court. But to play a trick and never be discovered, that is all fair. Do not say a word about it, Mr. Spurgeon. It is all business. You must not touch business. Tricks that are not discovered, of course, you are not to find fault with them. The common measure of sin is the notoriety of it. But I do not believe in that. A sin is a sin, whether done in private or before the wide world. It is singular how men will measure guilt. A railway servant puts up a wrong signal. There's an accident. The man is tried and severely reprimanded. The day before he put up the wrong signal, but there was no accident, and therefore no one accused him for his neglect. But it was just the same, accident or no accident. The accident did not make the guilt. It was the deed which made the guilt, not the notoriety, nor yet the consequence of it. It was his business to have taken care of, and he was as guilty the first time as he was the second, for he negligently exposed the lives of men. Do not measure sin by what other people say of it, but measure sin by what God says of it, and what your own conscience says of it. Now I hold that secret sin, if anything, is the worst of sin, because secret sin implies that the man who commits it has atheism in his heart. You will ask how that can be. I reply, he may be a professing Christian, but I shall tell him to his face that he is a practical atheist, if he labors to keep up a respectable profession before man, and then secretly transgress. Why is he not an atheist, who will say there is a God, yet at the same time thinks more of man than he does of God? Is it not the very essence of atheism? Is it not a denial of the divinity of the Most High when men lightly esteem him, and think more of the eye of a creature than of the observation of their Creator? There are some who would not for the life of them say a wicked word in the presence of their minister, but they can do it knowing God is looking at them. They are atheists. There are some who would not trick and trade for all the world if they thought that they would be discovered, but they can do it while God is with them. That is, they think more of the eye of man than of the eye of God, and they think it worse to be condemned by man than to be condemned by God. Call it by what name you will, the proper name of that is practical atheism. It is dishonoring God. It is dethroning him, putting him down below his own creatures. And what is that but to take away his divinity? Brethren, do not, I beseech you, incur the fearful guilt of secret sins. No man can sin in a little secret. It will certainly engender more sin. No man can be a hypocrite and yet be moderate in guilt. He will go from bad to worse, and still proceed until when his guilt shall be published, he shall be found to be the very worst and most hardened of men. Take heed of the guilt of secret sin. Ah, now if I could preach as Rowland Hill did, I would make some people look to themselves at home and tremble too. It is said that when he preached there was not a man in the window or standing in the crowd or perched up anywhere, but said, quote, "There he is, preaching at me. He's telling me about my secret sins," end quote. And when he proclaimed God's omniscience, it is said men would almost think they saw God bodily present in the midst of them, looking at them. And when he had done his sermon, they would hear a voice in their ears, quote, Can any hide himself in secret places that I cannot see him? Saith the Lord. Do not I fill heaven and earth? Saith the Lord. End quote. I could do that I could make every man look to himself and find out his secret sin. Come, my hearer, what is it? Bring it forth to the daylight. Perhaps it will die in the light of the sun. These things love not to be discovered. Tell thine own conscience now what it is. Look it in the face. Confess it before God, and may He give thee grace to remove that sin and every other, and turn to Him with full purpose of heart. But this know, that thy guilt is guilt discovered or undiscovered, and that if there be any difference, it is worse because it has been secret. God save us from this guilt of secret sin. Quote, cleanse thou me from secret faults. End quote. 4. And note next the danger of secret sin. One danger is that a man cannot commit a little sin in secret without being by and by betrayed into a public sin. You cannot, sir, though you may think you can preserve a moderation in sin. If you commit one sin, it is like the melting of a lower glacier upon the Alps. The others must follow in time. As certainly as you heap one stone upon the cairn today, the next day you will cast another, until the heap, reared stone by stone, shall become a very pyramid. See the coral insect at work? You cannot decree where it shall stay its work. It will not build its rock just as high as you please. It will not stay until it shall be covered with weeds, until the weeds shall decay, and there shall be soil upon it, and an island shall be created by tiny creatures. Sin cannot be held in with bit and bridle. Quote, but I am going to have a little drink now and then. I am only going to be intoxicated once a week or so. Nobody will see it. I shall be in bed directly. End quote. You will be drunk in the streets soon. Quote, I am only just going to read one lascivious book. I will put it under the sofa cover when anyone comes in. End quote. You will keep it in your library yet, sir. Quote, I am only going into that company now and then. End quote. You will go there every day. Such is the bewitching character of it. You cannot help it. You may as well ask the lion to let you put your head into his mouth. You cannot regulate his jaws, neither can you regulate sin. Once go into it, you cannot tell when you will be destroyed. You may be such a fortunate individual, like that Van Amberg. You may put your head in and out a great many times. Reset assured that one of these days it will be a costly venture. Again you may labor to conceal your vicious habit, but it will come out. You cannot help it. You keep your little pet sin at home, but mark this, when the door is ajar, the dog will be out in the street. Wrap him up in your bosom, put him over fold after fold of hypocrisy to keep him secret. The wretch will be singing some day when you are in company. You cannot keep the evil bird's sin still. Your sin will go abroad, and what is more, you will not mind some of these days. A man who indulges in sin privately, by degrees gets his forehead as hard as brass. The first time he sinned, the drops of sweat stood on his brow at the recollection of what he had done. The second time, no hot sweat on his brow, only an agitation of the muscle. The third time there was the sly, sneaky look, but no agitation. The next time he sinned a little further, and by degrees he became the bold blasphemer of his God, who exclaimed, quote, Who am I that I should fear Jehovah, and who is he that I should serve him? End quote. Men go from bad to worse. Launch your boat in the current. It must go where the current takes it. Put yourself in the whirlwind. You are but a straw in the wind. You must go which way the wind carries you. You cannot control yourself. The balloon can mount, but it cannot direct its course. It must go whichever way the wind blows. If you once mount into sin, there is no stopping. Take heed. If you would not become the worst of characters, take heed of the little sins. They, mounting one upon another, may at last heave you from the summit and destroy your soul forever. There is great danger in secret sins.